Hi, welcome to our Build a Quilt Basics video, the half square triangle, the most often used block in quilting, and you can get your free copy of our in the hoop version of the half square triangle at our website, mybuildaquilt.com. And now for the demonstration. Okay, so here we are at my machine camera, and the first square or block that we're going to create is the half square triangle. Now we're going to go through and make the half square, the quarter square, and the square in the hoop, and then we'll go back over under my other camera and we will talk about how we trim these, because you trim all blocks in that manner. So we'll do those all at once. You can see here I have my tools available, my scissors, my glue stick, my stylus if I need it, my seam roller, and my embroidery tape. And right here I have my two fabrics. So I've also loaded my file on my machine. On this particular machine, I loaded it through a USB stick. You might be able to load your files through the Wi-Fi if you have a more modern machine that can do that. So somehow you have loaded your file onto your machine and you should know how to complete that. Now today I'm going to be stitching in a black thread so that you can see it a little more easily. I have loaded my hoop with a standard wash away stabilizer, one that we would use for, say, making freestanding lace. So now I'm going to go to step one, which is basically going to give me what I call the border outline. And you'll find that information also written in the written instructions along with the step-by-step diagrams as well. So it is just stitching out my main border. And because we are doing a square, of course, that border is a square. And what it's showing us is that this finished box is going to be our finished size. Okay. When we trim it out, we'll talk about what else this box represents for us in the piecing process. Now, a half square triangle is always two pieces of fabric. I've chosen this yellow and this polka dot, this aqua with the light yellow polka dot. So I have those prepared. But the second step also gets stitched directly to your stabilizer, and it will give us the placement outline for our first piece of fabric, which is going to be our lighter color or our yellow fabric. So let's do that now. Now, I will give you one tip here, because this was something that my shop where I purchased my machines and I came across. I have another machine which is a embroidery only. It's not a combo machine like this one is. And I kept having problems with it not catching stitches on my straight stitch, which is basically the only stitch we use when we're piecing. And what we found out was that it actually needed a sewing bobbin case. So in this machine, because it's a combo, I have a bobbin case for embroidery and a bobbin case for sewing. The straight stitches do better if you use the sewing bobbin case rather than the embroidery bobbin case, because really all we're doing here is straight stitching like we would on a sewing machine. If you have an embroidery only machine, but that machine has a counterpart, which is a sewing machine or a combo machine, then get that sewing bobbin and check with your local dealer for all of that information if you have problems. That can be helpful. So here I'm going to take and use my glue stick. This will show you how to use that. And I'm just going to place a couple little marks right in my upper square or triangle, really, where I'm going to place my fabric. Now I can easily see and easily feel that thread line. So I'm going to lay this fabric so that I have roughly a 1/4 inch of it hanging over or coming past that line. Not a reason to get really worried about it if it's more, because you can always trim it later. Now I place that down. Now I'm ready to stitch out step 3, which is going to be the tack down of that triangle. Oops, I'm going to stop and lift my needle and my foot because my needle came unthreaded. So we'll just rethread real quick. Just a second. Sometimes that happens with machines, right? Thank goodness for auto threaders. There we go. Now we'll start again. And we're doing the tack down of the top half of the half square triangle. Very simple. The half square triangle is probably the most often used block in quilting. And so getting used to making this block will be helpful for you, because you're going to end up making a lot of them in your quilting journey. In fact, all 3 of the blocks in our basic set today are probably the 3 most often used blocks in the series, or in the quilting series. Alrighty, so now I've tacked that down. If, excuse me, this was way over this line, I could remove my hoop and I could take my scissors and I could just give it a little trim. If it's not straight, it doesn't matter. Just do the best you can. Another good reason to have scissors with a serrated edge, because you're going to get a really fine cut there. But as of course I've used my rotary blade with the pinking blade, I'm good to go. And I am not going to trim the outer edges, because that gets trimmed when we trim the whole thing out of the stabilizer at the end. So no need to trim here or here at this point. So now the next thing I'm going to do is lay down my second fabric. But I should tell you that with piecing in the hoop, your first piece of fabric is always laid down right side up. You also get that information in the written instructions. So if this piece were going to be the print, say that was my first piece, I would lay it down right side up every time, no matter what. Now, with a second, third, fourth, or subsequent piece of fabric, you always lay it down right side down, or right side together with your other fabric. Now, if you can see here, I've laid this down, and you'll see it in the picture diagram in the written instructions, where just a tiny bit of my other fabric is showing. I like to make sure and do that. Then I know this is placed exactly where I need it to be for a good seam. Now I'm going to place that in here. I'm going to bring my needle down, and my foot down, and I'm going to do the step 4, which is going to stitch this together on top of piece number 1. Alrighty. Now, piece number 5, or step number 5, is what we call the Flippin Stitch. So we're not done, obviously. We have to get this to be like this. So what I like to do there again is take my glue stick, give myself a little bit right in that square, and I always put my glue right on my stabilizer if possible, because then I know exactly where my boundaries are for that, and I'm not putting it out here anywhere. Now I'm going to take this bottom piece of fabric and I'm going to flip it. So easy. Now it's stuck there because of the glue. Now I can take my seam roller and I can roll my seam and give it a nice little kind of a press there to get it nice and flat. Now, eventually you're going to iron these as well, but that helps for the stitch out process. Now, step number 5 is to stitch this on its outer border so that it's stitched down. And you can go ahead and proceed with that. Golly, my needle came unthreaded again. Again, that's okay. That's what automatic threaders are for, to make it easy. There we go. Now we'll just go ahead and stitch out step number 5. And sometimes I just keep my fingers there and kind of help it. That's also a good time to kind of use your stylus, so not to get your fingers in there by the needle and the foot. So now technically we've stitched out our half square triangle. Congratulations, you did it if you've been sewing along with me. However, there's one more step. Step 6 will be a stitch out all the way around the block. And you might ask why. Well, a couple of reasons. One, it's going to connect these pieces that are right here at the corner between the two fabrics, or if I had multiple fabrics, it would connect them all the way around. And that box will also become our guide for trimming and our guide for sewing our squares together. You'll see that more in the trimming part of this video. So now I can, if I like, just use a stylus to hold this down here. The thing you're trying to prevent is to have your foot from catching here and flipping this back and causing problems. It's always fixable, but who wants to have to fix it if we don't need to? So you can use a stylus, or what I like to do is use my embroidery tape here. I don't put embroidery tape all the way around because it's not needed. I just put it over that point there, and then I know that that's not going to catch. Now you're going to say, oh, well, you're going to put it down there as well. I could, but because my foot is going to go around in a clockwise direction, it's not going to catch here because it's going over that fold. Here it would be coming against the fold. So you can put tape there or not. Let's go ahead and do that stitch out and I'll show you what I mean. So it's going to start up here in the corner and it's going to stitch in a clockwise direction. So I wouldn't want it to catch that. And see, it doesn't because it slides right over it because of the tape. Now, when it comes here, I don't have to worry because it's going with that fabric. It's not going to catch. Now, if it makes you a little nervous, just put a little piece of tape there until you're more confident. That's also fine. So then when we go over to trimming in a little bit, I will take this and I will peel this tape off, and then we will trim this out of the hoop. But congratulations, you just created your first half square triangle.
Thank you for watching our Build a Quilt basic video on making the half square triangle. Until next time, everybody, quilt life beautiful.